Hey thinkers, welcome back to Future Mind, the show where we explore how the next generation is shaping tomorrow. Today we're embarking on a really fascinating deep dive. We're tackling one of the most talked about topics around. Why does Generation Z think so differently? You hear it all the time, right? For many of us, this generation, born roughly between 1997 and 2012, they just seem to operate on a completely new wavelength. It's like they have a whole different rule book, one we haven't quite figured out yet. We often hear Gen Z described as, rule breakers, maybe rebellious, or sometimes just different. But here's the question we really want to get into today. What if it's not resilient? What if their behaviors are actually a really sophisticated, rational adaptation?
Just an adaptation to a world that's fundamentally changed.
Exactly. A world that's just completely different from what previous generations experienced. So our mission in this deep dive is to kind of peel back those stereotypes. We want to get beyond the surface level and really try to uncover the underlying reasons for their unique worldview. And maybe, just maybe, understand why their perspective might be exactly what the future needs. So how are we going to unpack this? It's a big topic.
It is.
Well, first, we'll explore how being the first true digital natives has quite literally rewired their brains. We'll get into the cognitive side.
Right, the always-on world.
Then we'll look at how this constant stream of global crises, financial crashes, pandemics, you name it, has really shaped their core values.
Yeah, the world they inherited.
And finally, we'll delve into their approach to work, which is fascinating. And maybe most importantly, their openness about mental health. That's not fragility, but actually new kind of strength.
A really crucial shift.
It's definitely a journey into a new way of thinking. I think you'll find there are quite a few aha moments along the way.
Okay, let's jump right in. The defining feature. Technology, the relationship with it. We call Gen Z digital natives. Now that sounds a bit like jargon, maybe?
It gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
It does. But here, it means something huge. Unlike us perhaps, who discovered the digital world.
Right, remembering dial-up modems.
Exactly. Or those first brick-like mobile phones. Gen Z didn't just find the internet. They were raised in it.
It was always there, like electricity or running water.
Just part of the background radiation of life. Smartphones, instant connectivity, always on. That's their baseline reality. And the implication here isn't just, they like screens more. It's much deeper.
Much deeper.
This constant immersion from day one has fundamentally rewired their cognitive landscape. Their brains literally process information differently.
Neuroplasticity in action.
Right. And this can make it really challenging for older generations to fully grasp because we just don't share that same foundational experience. Our brains were wired differently in a different context.
It's a genuine cognitive gap in some ways, and it's crucial to understand this isn't just theory. It's a significant, observable shift in how they think, how they process. For Gen Z, information isn't just instant, it's global. It's relentlessly accessible. They've never known a world where you had to wait for news or where connecting globally wasn't easy.
Hard to imagine now, isn't it?
It really is. And this constant flood of information, of stimuli, it's conditioned their brains, sculpted their neural pathways. Now, we often hear the criticism about short attention spans.
Oh yeah, that comes up constantly.
But it's more complex than that. Their brains aren't necessarily short on attention. They're incredibly skilled at rapid context switching, hyper multitasking.
So not a flaw, but an adaptation.
Exactly, it's an adaptation. This allows them to process an incredible range of information almost simultaneously. Think about it. News, memes, videos, social updates all at once.
Wow.
They can pivot between these things with amazing speed. In an information overloaded world, that's actually a powerful skill. It's fluency in a complex digital language.
Okay, that framing adaptation, not deficit, is really helpful. But it does come with the trade-offs, doesn't it? This superpower of context switching.
There are always trade-offs.
This constant stimulation, this need to switch attention all the time. It does seem to lead to a decline in tolerating boredom. And maybe, more importantly, engaging in that deep, sustained focus.
The kind you need for complex tasks.
Right. Reading a dense book without checking your phone, working through a tough problem without distraction, that kind of thing. And the data here is pretty stark. It really quantifies this shift.
The numbers are quite striking.
Research shows the average human attention span fell from about 12 seconds back in 2000.
Which already sounds short.
Right, down to just 8.25 seconds today. Just let that sink in. That's officially less than the average attention span of a goldfish, which is apparently around 9 seconds.
A goldfish. It's not about intelligence, obviously, but it's a physiological measure of how our attention patterns have changed.
And this constant splitting of attention, bouncing between digital things, researchers have called it time confetti.
That's a great term for it. Little bits of time scattered everywhere.
Exactly. And it's vital to get this.
Huh.
It's not laziness. It's not a lack of willpower. It's a physiological response to an environment that's literally designed, often with very sophisticated AI, to grab our attention constantly.
Engineered distraction.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the educational impact is huge. It makes it, quote, incredibly difficult for students to engage deeply with academic content.
You see that reflected in test performance, in retaining information long term?
It's a fundamental shift in how we learn, how we think, how we remember.
So, thinking about this digital mindset, what does it mean for you listening right now? This isn't just about understanding Gen Z. It reflects shifts happening to all of us, really. It helps us see these patterns not as character flaws, but as adaptations to this new digital environment.
Right. It encourages empathy, maybe.
Definitely. And it makes us ask, how do the old strategies for focus or learning hold up? Maybe they don't, or they need adjusting. It prompts us to consider how we navigate this world and maybe what we can learn from those who grew up entirely within it.
That's a great point for self-reflection. Okay, let's shift gears. Beyond technology, let's look at something external that deeply shaped Gen Z, their values, because this is where it gets really compelling. Their beliefs, their priorities, they aren't just random. They're a direct result of the world they inherited.
A world defined by crisis, really.
Almost constant crisis, it feels like. Think about their formative years. They grew up in the shadow of the 2008 financial crash, seeing its impact.
Economic uncertainty was baked in early.
Then global political upheavals, amplified on their screens 204/7. Then a global pandemic that changed literally everything overnight.
Unprecedented disruption.
And now the inescapable reality of the climate crisis looming large. For them, these weren't distant news items. This was their childhood and adolescence.
The backdrop to growing up.
And the result. This constant exposure to instability and, frankly, injustice has fostered a worldview that's incredibly pragmatic, very socially conscious, and, importantly, unafraid to challenge authority when things seem broken.
They learned early on that the old systems might not hold up, so they're ready to question them or build new ones.
Exactly. And this connects directly to their strong commitment to diversity and inclusivity. It's a core part of who they are. Statistically, Gen Z is the most diverse generation in history. The numbers are clear. In the U.S., nearly half identify as racial or ethnic minorities.
Almost 50%, that's huge.
It is. And more than 1 in 5 identify as LGBTQ plus 8san. That's over 20%. This isn't just a statistic, it's their lived reality, their friends, their communities. It fundamentally shapes how they see the world. So naturally, issues like social equity, gender identity, racial justice, these aren't fringe issues for them. They are central.
Yeah.
Non-negotiable.
Foundational.
Absolutely. You see it in survey data. A strong majority believes systemic racism is a public health crisis. They think addressing historical segregation should be a federal priority. These aren't just opinions then. They're convictions.
Deep convictions. They drive their choices, who they buy from, who they vote for, what causes they support. They expect action, not just words.
And speaking of action, when you look at their priorities, one issue consistently dominates climate change.
It's impossible to overstate its importance for them.
It's not a future problem for Gen Z. It's an immediate existential threat happening now.
Yeah.
It ranks top in so many surveys.
The data is overwhelming on this.
An incredible 41% cite global warming as the most important global issue. Not just an issue, the most important one.
That's a massive consensus.
And it goes beyond just concern. Many experience genuine eco-anxiety.
A recognized psychological impact.
Over 80% say they're worried about the climate crisis. That worry affects their daily lives, their choices.
Yeah.
This isn't some passing trend for them.
No, it's deeply embedded.
This urgency is a core belief. It's woven into their identity. It drives them to demand much stronger policies, much faster action from leaders, from companies.
Yeah. And they take action themselves through activism, lifestyle changes, even career paths focused on sustainability. So, why does understanding these core values matter to you, the listener? Because it explains why they act the way they do. When you see Gen Z pushing hard for social justice or sustainability or questioning norms, it's not random rebellion.
Like a direct response.
It's a direct, informed, rational response to the world they see, the world they've inherited. For them, things like equity, climate action, authenticity, these aren't optional extras. They're fundamental to fairness, survival, and frankly, morality in the future they have to live in.
Their values really are their roadmap. That really puts it into perspective. Okay, let's transition again. How has this world of crisis, especially the economic side, reshaped their approach to work and money? Because the economic instability of the last couple of decades, it basically blew up the old blueprint for a successful life, didn't it?
Completely shattered it for many.
That old path, degree, stable 9-to-5 job for life, climb the ladder, buy a house, retire comfortably, that narrative just doesn't seem realistic or even desirable to many of them.
They saw it not working out for older generations.
They saw their parents, maybe older siblings, struggling with huge student debt, facing shaky job markets, maybe unable to afford housing.
Right, the promises didn't always materialize.
They saw the rules change, and the old rules often failed. So this experience, this direct observation of precarity, it's made them really pragmatic.
And interestingly, often more financially conservative than you might expect.
Yeah, they're not just hoping for the best. They're actively planning for uncertainty, trying to build stability on their own terms.
And what's really fascinating is how this pragmatism fuels a very innovative approach to work. They're definitely not chasing that old dream of a single lifelong career in one company.
And it feels almost archaic to them, maybe.
For many, yes. It feels like a relic. Instead, they're carving out new paths that align better with their values and the reality of today's economy.
Like the gig economy, side hustles.
Exactly. They embrace freelancing, portfolio careers, side hustles much more readily. They value independence, flexibility, autonomy, often over the rigidity of a traditional 9-to-5.
Which they might see as demanding too much for too little return.
Precisely. It's not about avoiding work. It's about redefining the terms of work. What's the balance between effort, reward, and well-being? And this leads them to question the standard work week itself. Get this. Over a third of employed Gen Zers say work negatively impacts their mental health.
Over a third. That's huge.
And 57% disapprove of the 40-hour work week. They question its necessity, its impact.
And again, this isn't laziness, right?
Not at all. It's a conscious choice. It's prioritizing well-being in a world that feels unstable, where those old guarantees of security just aren't there anymore.
That distinction is so important. And this focus on well-being and flexibility also shapes their preferences for where they work and connects to social needs in a way that surprised me. So, yes, a lot of Gen Z prefer remote work for flexibility, for productivity. That makes sense, given their digital skills.
It seems intuitive.
But, and this is the twist, they're actually the least likely generation to want exclusively remote work. Only 23% prefer that.
That does seem counterintuitive. You'd think the digital natives would be all in on remote.
Right. But the reason points to something deeper, and honestly, quite sad. Gen Z is often called the loneliest generation.
You hear that a lot, unfortunately. The data backs it up.
They're almost 3 times more likely than boomers to report feeling lonely often. That's a huge gap, and it clearly affects what they want from work. So what's the takeaway? While they value remote work's freedom, they also crave genuine in-person connection, community.
The social aspect of work becomes more important.
Exactly. So many find they're actually just as productive, sometimes more, in an office because it provides that social interaction.
It combats the isolation.
Which means they're really drawn to hybrid models, solutions that offer that balance, the flexibility they need, plus the real-world social connection they crave.
And zooming out, connecting this to the bigger picture, these preferences aren't just Gen Z trends. They're pushing all workplaces to rethink things.
For everyone.
Yeah. What does this mean for employers? For company culture? For the future of work itself? It suggests successful organizations will be those that are adaptable, offer real flexibility, and find ways to foster genuine connection.
Not just connection through a screen.
Right. Understanding that connection isn't just a perk anymore, it's becoming a fundamental need for a huge part of the workforce. It forces a rethink of the whole employer-employee contract, moving beyond just pay to well-being and purpose.
That's a massive shift.
Yeah.
And it flows perfectly into our next point, which I think might be the most transformative aspect of Gen Z's worldview. Their radical openness about mental health. This is a genuine game changer for everyone. They are by far the most likely generation to openly talk about struggles with anxiety, with depression.
breaking down decades of silence and stigma.
The statistics are stark.
Yeah.
Nearly half of young adults, 18-29, report frequent anxiety, much higher than older groups. Now, for older generations, hearing this, seeing these numbers, it might look like a crisis. Maybe it seems like fragility or being overly sensitive.
That's a common interpretation sometimes.
But I really want us to reframe that. What looks like a crisis is actually, I believe, a brave, powerful, new kind of strength.
Strength in vulnerability.
It's a collective refusal to suffer in silence. It's a demand for conversation, for understanding, for support that previous generations often couldn't even ask for. They didn't have the language or the permission.
They're not just feeling it, they're challenging the stigma head on. And it's amazing to see how deliberately they're normalizing these conversations. Everywhere, social media, schools, workplaces, instead of hiding struggles, which was the old norm, they're openly discussing therapy, mindfulness, self-care. It's a huge cultural shift.
Sending ripples everywhere.
Definitely. And they're way more likely to seek professional help. Over 40% report having been to therapy. They see it as a normal part of health, like going to the doctor.
Not something shameful.
And it's not just talk therapy either. They're actively seeking practical skills, tools to cope with stress.
Things they can actually use day to day.
Exactly. Things like grounding techniques, the 5-4-3-2-1 method to anchor yourself in the present, or emotion regulation strategies, maybe from things like CBT or DBT they find online or through apps.
So a really proactive approach.
Very proactive. It shows they understand mental well-being isn't passive. It takes active effort and a set of skills. You don't just wait for a breaking point.
And this proactivity extends to managing the digital world itself, the very thing that can sometimes fuel these struggles.
That self-awareness is key.
They seem acutely aware of social media's potential downsides, and they act on it. Nearly 7 in 10 Gen Zers have taken a social media break specifically for their mental health.
Think about that. The generation raised online is consciously stepping back.
Because they understand the toll it can take.
Yeah.
This isn't weakness. It's an incredible act of defiance, really. Defiance against a culture that demanded silence, that equated mental struggle with failure. Their willingness to be vulnerable, to seek help, to talk openly, to manage their digital intake. It's transformative. It's paving the way for a healthier, more honest future for all of us. It's a demand for collective care.
So connecting this again to the bigger picture, how does this openness challenge mental health stigma for everyone across all generations? And what does that mean for the future? For healthcare policy? For social support? For how society itself defines well-being?
Huge questions.
It points towards a future where mental health isn't separate or shameful, but just health, integrated, where seeking help is encouraged, not judged, where compassion replaces stigma. That benefits absolutely everyone.
Wow. Okay, what an incredible journey we've taken today. Let's try and wrap this up, reframe what we've learned. Those common criticisms of Gen Z, lazy, entitled, phone addicted, as we've seen, they just miss the mark completely, don't they?
They really do. They're surface level judgments.
This generation thinks differently, not out of random rebellion, but because the world they navigate is fundamentally different. Their thinking is an adaptation and an intelligent response to unprecedented circumstances.
They're not breaking rules for fun, they're rewriting them out of necessity.
Their hyper-awareness of global issues, their fierce prioritization of mental health, their pragmatic approach to work, these aren't signs of weakness.
No, they're signs of resilience, adaptability, conscientiousness.
They're fluent in new ways of communicating, new forms of activism that blend online and offline worlds, and they're teaching us all a new language of self-care, more honest, more proactive. So maybe the next time you see a young person scrolling endlessly on their phone, pause for a second. Remember, they're navigating this incredibly complex digital world designed to capture their attention. It's a constant battle.
An attention economy they live in.
And the next time you hear a young person speak openly about their mental health, please know they're not being sensitive. They're being brave.
Incredibly brave.
They're showing a courage and demanding an authenticity that past generations often couldn't. They carried those burdens silently. Because maybe, at the end of the day, the most powerful thing Gen Z has done is just keep asking that simple yet potent question. Why?
Why are things this way?
Why accept injustice? Why can't we do better? Why can't we build something more equitable, more sustainable?
And in asking why.
Exactly. And asking why, they might just be laying the foundation for a more mindful, more authentic, and ultimately a more compassionate and resilient future for everyone. A future that actually faces the challenges they inherited head on. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today. We really hope this deep dive into Generation Z has given you some fresh perspectives, maybe a lot to think about.
Hope it sparks some thoughts.
We look forward to exploring more future minds and diving into more fascinating topics with you next time. Goodbye for now.